In Ikoria, Gavi Ness Warden was printed to be the new commander for Cycling. Cycling is an ability that says pay this amount of mana, discard this card, draw a card. It's existed for a very long time and had major archetypes on Amonkhet and Ikoria. But the problem with Gavi is that it creates only one 2/2 each turn, because it's only your second card. So I think a better commander is Mizzet the Firemind. Every card you draw will deal 1 damage. We do lose access to white for this deck, but I think that downside is outweighed by the benefit of every card dealing 1 damage. But Mizzet, the Dragon Wizard, costs 6 mana to cast, which is a lot more than Gavi, so we're going to have to ramp to get there. We're running a bunch of the classic mana rocks: Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Izzet Signet because we're in Izzet, Fire Diamond, Felwar Stone, and we get to run the Dragon Orbs because our commander is a dragon, so these will benefit us a lot. But ramp isn't the main focus of this deck, cycling is. And thanks to Ikoria, we have a lot of really good cycling cards. So Avian Oddity can give a creature flying, Curator of Mysteries scries one whenever we cycle another card, Desert Ceradon can cycle in the early game and be played in the late game, Dranis Stinger functions as a second Mizzet, Gem Palm Sorcerer can give all of our wizards flying, and there are quite a few wizards in this deck. A couple of them already have flying, but it's alright. A lot of our interaction can also be gained from cycling, like countering spells, stopping stuff from blocking with Quakefoot Cyclops, destroying artifacts with Rampaging War Mammoth, and first strike counters from Sanctuary Smasher, tapping or untapping permanents is pretty common, giving our stuff flying once again. Yadaro is a big creature that can be played for free if we cycle him enough times. Another benefit of cycling is if we only have 1 mana, this says discard this card, draw a card. But if we have 6, we can then draw 4, which is really good for our commander. If we need to mill someone with compelling argument, we can, or we can discard it and draw a card for just 1 mana. If we want to be really, really mean, we can pay 10 mana and exile everything, or we can be a little bit mean, pay 7, draw a card, and destroy all lands. This card is really mean. I don't know why it's in the deck, but it seems kind of funny. We can deal a ton of damage to every creature, or just a little bit and get to draw a card. If an opponent happens to have a morph creature, we can turn it over, or we can just pay 1 and draw a card. We can make people mill 14 cards, or draw a card and make everyone mill 4 cards. We can counter spells, or draw cards. We can gain control of stuff, or draw cards. It just depends on what we need. We can tap creatures, or draw cards. We can counter spells, or counter spells a little bit less and draw cards. We can weaken creatures and draw cards. We can counter spells or draw cards. We can deal a lot of damage or a little bit of damage and draw a card. We can prevent blink effects or draw cards. We can deal damage to creatures or draw cards and deal a little bit of damage. We can counter a lot of spells or draw cards and counter a few spells. We can draw cards and make a huge shark or make a bunch of sharks. But cycling isn't the only way to draw cards. So here's a couple more ways to draw cards. A lot of them also discard cards and function the same as cycling would. Charming Scoundrel is a quick creature to get out that can also discard a card to draw a card, or you can ramp with treasures or make your stuff bigger with a Wicked roll. Prismari Command is ramp, removal, card draw, or other types of removal, card selection, discard, payoff. Basically, Prismari Command does everything this deck wants to do. Howling Mind can draw us extra cards on each turn and make our opponents draw cards if that's a benefit. But our commander shouldn't be the only payoff for drawing cards in the deck, or cycling cards, or discarding cards, so here's some more payoffs. Cunning Survivor, Flameblade Adept, Heckma Sentinels, and Prickly Marmoset all pump themselves whenever you cycle or discard a card. This should be happening a lot, so these creatures should get very big. Now Ominous Sphinx does the other way, and weakens your opponent's creatures when you cycle a card. Spellpire Phoenix can bring back your cycling cards from the graveyard to your hand, and then it can bring itself back once it dies if you cycle enough cards. Zenith Seeker can give your stuff flying when you cycle cards, and Abandoned Sarcophagus can let you cast your cycled cards again from the discard pile. Crystalline Resonance is an enchantment that can copy a permanent whenever you cycle something. This could be ramp if you choose to copy a land, or it can be super aggressive if you choose to copy one of the big creatures we showed earlier in the video. Drake Haven can help us overwhelm the board with a bunch of 2/2 blue drakes with flying whenever we cycle or discard a card. An Escape Protocol can help us to protect our commander when we cycle cards. Lightning Rift is another enchantment that allows us to pay 1 whenever we cycle to deal 2 damage to any target. This basically functions as a second commander or Drana Stinger in our deck. Alondra Skydreamer is a 4-mana 2/4, but whenever we draw our second card each turn, we create a 2/2 blue drake with flying. So whenever we cycle a card, we can make a 2/2, and if we draw 5 cards, all of our drakes from her or Drake Haven will all get +X+X, where X is the number of cards in our hand. If we give everything +5/+5, it's basically game over. Notably, cycling involves discarding a card, which counts as descending. So some of the new descend payoffs are really good. Child of the Volcano can put a bunch of +1/+1 counters, and Enterprising Scallywag can help us ramp whenever we cycle stuff. Brass's Tunnel Grinder is another descend benefit that also functions as ramp when it turns into a land, and that land can give all your stuff Cascade, so you can basically just destroy the game if this flips. But our commander only deals 1 damage every time we draw a card. That's not very much. You have to deal 120 damage to all your opponents, so you'd have to draw 120 cards, but it's only a 100-card deck. So, we need some ways to increase the amount of damage put out. Gearson Star and Kelomorph adds 2 damage to everything we do, and O'Hara Sonal, Deepest Might, will turn every damage into 4 damage. City on Fire will triple it, and Mechanized Warfare will add 1 to it, which basically doubles it, and there we go. We've got tons of damage coming out. The whole deck list can be found on Moxfield in the description. There's also some other interesting cards in here that I didn't go over in this video. Tell me in the comments below what you think about Niv Mizzet the Firemind being the best cycling commander in Magic the Gathering.